it's such a catch-22 because you're talking about putting someone at the forefront. In order to be at the forefront, we'll talk numbers now. You need a radio budget, you need a huge marketing budget. When you don't have that type of corporate sponsorship, those things are much more difficult to negotiate. They're much more difficult to be able to get done. I'm not saying that they can't be done. They're possible. If I've done anything in my career, I've proved that that's not something that you need to completely rely on. I've never really had a radio budget for anything. We marketed it to college radio. Here's a record. Spin it if you like it. Sure. You know, I can't hold on to vinyl. You know, those fucking DJs just tear it out of my hands. And there's something to be said about the aspect of quality that brings, yes. But at the same time, what the industry offers, I think, to people, which seems lucrative, is the idea of working with very accomplished producers, people who are very professional. You know, I'm going to say that much for them. As much as the industry, you know, sucks dick and it's full of sycophants, there are very, very accomplished musicians there. You actually find people who read music, you know. I find those people interesting to relate to because I'm one of the few rappers I know who reads music, and I can understand when they write like their sheet music out for a beat, and I'm just like, oh, this is very different. Whereas in the underground, it's just like, all right, we're sampling this. Here's the beat. Rhyme over the 2-track, and here it is, you know. I think that attracts people. There's almost a rock starish aspect to it where it's like, you know what, any woman that's backstage is just guaranteed to sleep with anybody who's there. It's just that type of attitude that you're entitled to things. You know, now I've worked enough and I don't need to work anymore. I'm just going to coast on. I don't think everyone's going to get every single thing that I say, but I think there are so many references within the music to things that aren't just part of pop culture that they'll say, you know what, that's interesting. What does that mean? I want to discover it for myself, you know. At some point, you make music for people in different instances, you know. There's music for people when they go to the club. There's music for people when they're in their car and they want to be in a mood where they're maybe a little more pensive about what's going on in their life. I can make music that's reflective. I can make music that's very, very hard edge, that's more point of no return, go crazy, mosh pit, wild out, whatever. But at the same time, you know, I can't expect everybody to sit there and grasp every single aspect of what I've said. You know, I think that's a process that comes with time. I don't even know everything in the world. How the fuck, you know, I can't expect the audience to, all of them be PhD candidates. There are other factors that go into it besides the raw politics, you know? So I think those are definite parts that are overlooked in the greater scheme of what I do, you know? I have to be a good rapper. I have to be in tune with what I have. People have to trust what I say, you know? I've never taken corporate bribes for stuff. People respect my opinion because they know I'm honest, at least. Even if they don't agree with every aspect of what I say, they can say, well, here's a guy who believes in what he said. Here's a guy who's had a chance to sell out, who's had money put in his face, a lot of money. And they said, no, I'm sorry, I won't allow you to do that. Fuck out of here. Which I think makes the music more believable in a sense. So it's not just the politics, it's everything that exists around it. There's something to be said about the way that education molds a mind. You know, because you have young, impressionable people that start going to the school at 17, and they think to themselves, the only way that I can be successful is to follow this exact mold. And if you realize the people who are the richest, the people, billionaires, millionaires, they're the people who said, you know what, this is bullshit. This is setting me up to be another cog in the wheel. This is setting me up to be the assistant manager of McDonald's for the rest of my fucking life. You know? That even that mode of making money that existed 20 years ago is gone. I remind people, 20, 25 years ago, the model in America was, I'm going to go to school, go to college for 4 years, get my degree, and get a job, and stick with that job for 30 years. And now you need 2 or 3 income streams just to make ends meet. Recession isn't over for all fucking social classes. So I think there's something to be said not only about higher education, but also making sure that higher education is really giving you every fucking dollar that you're paying out of the ass for. I think that if I wasn't doing this rapping, I'd be doing what I'm doing in some other fashion. You know, it's just who I am. I don't feel comfortable walking past someone who's suffering, knowing that I really don't need to do much to help that person, and yet I don't give a fuck. There are other people who don't give a shit, who think that that doesn't affect them. You know, I don't believe in the way people define karma per se. The way it's like, oh, you know, if you do something good and something good's coming back to you. This isn't pay it forward, homie. It's not like that. You could do good your whole life, get raped and murdered, being a fucking missionary or whatever. You could spend your whole life being a dedicated public servant and have a fucking house dropped on you. It doesn't guarantee positive things. But I think that if I've learned anything from all my travels, I've learned that humanity is so similar and strives to be so different from one another and so superior. And that is where it's truly flawed.